Welcome to Carter's Country Club. This is episode 3. Is it the spark of creation? And my name is Ann Taylor Lashbrook-Wright. Hopefully, you are caught up and you have listened to all the parts of episode 1 and 2. And maybe you're ready for a change, maybe you're not. But I've started most of those sections with country music, and today I wanted to share some musical theater with you. And I'm just going to share a quick bit of this recording, and then my intention is throughout this episode to share other bits and pieces of this recording at the beginning of each part. As I mentioned before, I've had many challenges uploading things in a large file or something that is longer than, 30 minutes. So I'm going to keep each part as short as I can. And I'm going to start those parts for episode 3 with a little bit of Children of Eden. And this is not a professional recording. It's actually, I took the audio off of the video on YouTube of my high school's performance of Children of Eden. And it was in, I think it's 1998. I hope I'm correct on that. It could be 1999. Either way. If you want to watch the whole thing in its entirety, which I don't know why you would, but if you do, leave a comment here. But you won't hear me singing. You're going to hear some ensemble, and then you will hear the young woman who played Eve, just like Eve in the Bible. Again, and if you're not familiar with Children of Eden, just go look it up, right? It was Stephen Schwartz's musical before he became famous with Wicked, right? People knew of him because of Pippin and Ragtime and other things, but maybe you didn't know about Stephen Schwartz, that he wrote these lyrics. Somebody else wrote the book. I'm blanking on that. But lyrics, Stephen Schwartz, just like Wicked. And it's a wonderful musical. It has the creation story in Act 1 and Noah in Act 2. But this is from Act 1, and I want you just to listen to it a little bit. We ended episode 2 talking about gender. I'm going to expand upon gender as we continue to talk about doing the right thing. So let's take a deep breath and listen to these words. The woman. You know this story. Here's Eve.
Not now, dear. I'm trying to put the insects into alphabetical order.
That's Adam.
Ants, aphids.
No, Adam, now, Adam, it's a thing that will astound you. When I show you what I found, you won't believe.
Eve, what?
She brought him to the tree where they knew they should not be. Okay, that was a better transition than I've done. Okay. So, again, maybe you've not seen the musical, maybe you don't like musical theater. I'm so sorry. I am still wearing, because I recorded the end of episode 2 just a moment ago, my favorite shirt. I don't co parent with the government. The government is slavery. If we don't agree upon that, I'm sorry. But, and if we don't agree about liking musical theater, then I'm also sorry. But I am here to create the relationship with you, the person who's getting, right? It's like you're picking up what I'm putting down. Okay. So I'm talking about gender. I'm talking about the creation story. I'm talking about Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge. Okay. Just wrap your mind around that. Oh, and this constellation, do you know what it is? It's Aries, right? Why is it Aries? Because we need to get fiery. I am inviting you into action, and with each episode and each part, I am doing my best to get a little bit more intense, a little bit more into what is really going on in the world so we can come together and take some action. Okay, the quotes that you're seeing here. If you can't read, it's going to be hard to realize your dreams. I don't know all of the quotes and all of the things that Booker T. Washington said. Whether this was even what he said or it's just attributed to him, I'm not sure. But I do know that we get to read. And you'll stay with me until the very end? Question mark. That is from Harry Potter. Not a huge fan of Harry Potter as far as the series goes, just it didn't inspire me, but that's another conversation. I'm a little more like Chronicles of Narnia. Carter is listening to the Lord of the Rings series as of right now. It's taking him a little while to get into it. Definitely it was that way for me. Like I said, I didn't take to Harry Potter. Narnia. Like Narnia is my jam. It's Carter's jam too. So we've got to be able to read. 100%. I think you're clear on that, right? So, eclectic sources. I referenced the Bible in the very beginning, and I have talked about in episode 1 and 2 that I don't personally look at that as a very clear source because I cannot read Hebrew. And I am very clear that whether it's the Vatican or maybe Masonic lodges or other places are holding back that truth because they're the ones that own older text, right? We just get the kind of adapted version, right? Carter right now is listening to, I got him some audiobooks that are adapted versions of other full length classics that he has either been read or listened to. And we like to take in what was left out. You know, he was just in a play last week. What was left out in the play from the actual novel, right? So, what is left out or interpreted in a different way in the Bible if you can't read Hebrew, right? And if you just feel that it was passed down authentically, then I guess you don't know anything about King James. I don't know. And I know that that's not the only interpretation, but let's just use that as one example. Okay. Not to say that, you know, you may not feel that that's a great source, but I'm just saying there's a lot of questions. Okay, let's keep moving. Parental advisory. This is explicit on content. Yes, 100%. I've said that from the very beginning. If you happen to have gotten here and you're a child that I coach in swim or gymnastics, this is not for you. And as Mark Passio shares in his work, in his presentations at the very beginning, if you are a psychological child, this is also not for you. But if you've already gone through episodes 1 and 2, I think you're clear on why we're here. Why Aries? I've already said that because we've got to get a little fiery, and that is Carter's rising sign. He is definitely more fiery than me, right? Both Carter and I've shared this before. We have our sun and moon in Libra, but I am Aquarius rising, and he is Aries rising. These are the children that I am really excited to get back in that outdoor pool with next week. So, Tuesday, less than a week away, we start our summer season. But what I am envisioning in Carter's Country Club is not what I am currently doing, where I coach swim and gymnastics. I am envisioning something much bigger. And in the past, I have read the entire George Carlin quote for you here. You should look it up. If you're looking at this presentation on a small screen, I'm sorry. I'm not. I have a big television here that I use as a monitor, and I would really invite you to do that too. When I took Mark Passio's course, I thought my television monitor was big enough, but then I had to get a bigger one. And I didn't buy either one of these. They were given to me, right? I told you I identify as a dirtbag rock climber. This was one of my mom's old TVs. And now, I'm going to take a drink of tea. Now it is my monitor for my computer. But I'm going to read this quick thing that I made in bold here. It's a big club and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. Okay. So again, I was raised, both of my parents grew up as Baptist. I was raised in the Presbyterian church. Christ was my path. But I I think that religion is meant to bind and hold back. I think, that's very clear in the Latin religare, right? Again, we could talk about this all day. But I'm just here to ask a bunch of questions, right? I'm here to ask a bunch of questions and to keep asking questions. And some of this content I'm going to repeat because I understand that we need to repeat it many times, just like the dark occultists that rule our world repeat things over and over, like safe and effective, right? They use that during COVID. They have lots of things they repeat, but I'm going to repeat some truth so that we can come together and act in person, in real life. Get off our phones and devices. Fear is perception, false emotion appearing real, and fear is the currency of control. David Icke, Perceptions of a Renegade Mind. Great book. I've referenced it before. I've used this quote and this slide before because it is so important. And I may have talked about this before, but perhaps it was in a recording that was lost. I don't know. Carter and I coached at a club that was red, white, and blue. So we had a lot of patriotic items. And for us, we went through a period of expressing that patriotism as we were doing our best to figure out what our truth was. Now I know more. I know about those upward stars. I know more, and I'm going to continue to know more. Carter was curious about, he wanted a shirt because he saw them for adults, but they didn't have a child version. It was a patriotic shirt, I guess, probably for, the upcoming Memorial Day or 4th of July. And it had Snoopy and Woodstock. Snoopy's got a top hat on, I believe, and they're both holding American flags. And I've talked about the Paw Patrol, but I haven't referenced Snoopy. When we went online, I thought, well, they don't have it in a kid's version. I'll look up online. I'll see if I can find a high quality image, a vector or something, and we could put it on a shirt for him. If he wants that shirt, let's just make it. And I found this image of Snoopy, and I'm going to have to add it to episode 4. But it was Snoopy. Actually, no, I didn't notice it. I was looking at Snoopy and Woodstock in the patriotic images. Carter noticed. He goes, "Oh, I like that order follower one right there." And it was Snoopy, the dog, right? As military Snoopy, police Snoopy, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And I thought it was so awesome that my child knew that the dark occultists call the order followers, the police and military, call them their dogs. So it was really great. All right. So, as I have shared before, I've shared this slide and I incorrectly said in episode 2 that I was going to update this to include the Odyssey logo. But I am live streaming on Odyssey. I did take a break from that because it didn't seem to be working really well. Sometimes things would be good, and then sometimes I would record something and there was no audio there. So, I'm going to keep working on that. But as of right now, everything exists on YouTube and Rumble. And if you are on Instagram, you can follow Carter's Country Club. I do not curate that content or have anything to do with that. That is all Justin, because I still don't want to be on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm still choosing not to interact in social platforms. But I am creating this content because it's the right thing to do. Before 2020, I've talked about this before. I was all over. And in 2021, I chose to remove myself. In 2025, I am back because it is the right thing to do. Episode 1 is all about making the right choice. If you haven't watched that, I really invite you to go back and look at that, because if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I shared before, I thought this was Dr. Wayne Dyer, but I was corrected. If we don't learn how to read, and I mean really read, right? I know that you can read these things on the slide, but like, be able to really process that, right? That amount of rhetoric and then moving into sharing and processing that, right? If we're not really getting it, right? We're just repeating things, just like the safe and effective. I have shared before that I made different choices in 2020. And what I have been inviting you to do is to create a movement practice. That's what I talked about in episode 2. So while everybody was sitting around doing nothing and hanging out on Zoom, that was not the life that we were living. And I did the things that I had been putting off, right? I was like, I'm going to purchase competition kettlebells. I'm going to complete my intensati leader training. I'm going to, X, Y, and Z, right? So I was in action. And you can't really see my little hat in the background, but in the next slide, you can. As I've shared before, in 2020, I was involved in a freedom group, and I'm really grateful, again, as always, to be exposed to Mark Passio and to have done How to Become the True Media, because I was really disillusioned with the freedom movement when I was exposed to it, but I didn't have the words, right? Passio so clearly just says it's the My Freedom movement. And that's exactly what was going on. And it's so evident now with MAGA and Maha, right? Like they're really making America healthy again. Come on. If you don't follow Dane Wigington, you should. I don't follow him in social media. I just go directly to his website and check in. When there's something going on in the weather, I'm like, what's Dane Wigington saying about that? And I did that this morning while I was cooking Carter breakfast. I was like, what's Dane Wigington talking about? If you don't know who he is, go to geoengineeringwatch.org, and I'll make a new slide for episode 4 so you can have that. But go to geoengineeringwatch.org, watch the dimming, and then start to consume his content. I don't consume all of his content because it's way too robust, but I just get the gist of it. I'm like, okay, because I know, right? If you're not aware of what they're spraying in the skies, come on. So, anyway, we made different choices in 2020. I've talked about this before. And go back and watch episode 1 if you want to learn more about bikes and how Carter raced BMX, and how he got really strong in 2020. And these are the people in our lives that hung with us during that period of time when other people were alone. Some other people that we were able to see in 2020 that would still interact with us are these lovely girls that are in the pool. And I talk a lot in Bikes, Buoys, and Ballet in episode 2 about why swimming lessons are, why I'm back in the pool, why I'm teaching swim lessons, why I'm coaching swim, why I'm doing those things. But I wanted to ask a question here. Why are blowing bubbles so important in swimming lessons? Do you know the answer? If you said breath, then yes. Okay. I, in episode 2, in part 1, I invited you to breathe and we talked about breath. And I have continued to show images of idiots in masks. And I'm sorry if that offends you, then, we're not going to connect. But people that are still wearing masks and, all of that, they just don't know, right? They're just ignorant for sure. So, why in 2020 I stopped teaching adults is because I refused to wear a mask to teach somatics, fitness, movement, or athletics. I refused to only work with people online, even though I had been teaching online for years. Friends, rock climbers, clients, and other online individuals, sorry, I haven't obviously changed that slide. Others, oh no, it's correct. I just read it wrong. Friends, rock climbers, clients, and others online were hateful. Most would not speak to me or meet in person. They would only text or post. So true, right? So I chose to work with children. I chose quite literally to jump into the pool with them, and I talked more about that in episodes 1 and 2. And I intend to have aquatics as part of Carter's Country Club. So that's going to take a big journey, right? Because if we want to have an Olympic sized pool, which is my intention, right? I want to have an Olympic sized pool and then I want to bubble it in the winter. I don't know. I that's just I don't know. I have this like Maybe it's because I have this memory of my grandmother watching me in a pool and it was bubbled. I could be wrong, but that's the image that I remember when I was really young, and then working at Blairwood post when things reopened and being in the bubble. I just like a bubble. This is not a bubble. This is an indoor pool, and this is Carter last fall. I shared a lot in bikes, buoys, and ballet about swimming. So this is Carter with his really nice underwaters, which is what we are going to work on in the summer season. I told my athletes that we were going to really focus on, and the parents, we're really going to focus on our dives. We're really going to focus on our starts. And I share a lot in episode 1 and 2 about how I see movement coming together. Okay, the other thing, and we could talk all day about not enough people have access to aquatics for sure. Now, the other thing, and in the realm of what we're talking about here, of the spark of creation, of the divine masculine and feminine, please tell me that you have heard me talk about how beautiful ice skaters are. I don't know if that got lost in one of my recordings, but they're beautiful. This is Carter a few months ago at, that's him right there, at this try hockey for free in Tennessee, right? I told you we're dirtbag rock climbers. We would move mountains, and I pretty much work in order to provide Carter with opportunities. So if we wanted to take him down to Nashville, we could. And we would figure that out. If we wanted to drive him to Owensboro, so both are an hour away, we would. But we haven't made that choice. But we might. But how many families don't have access to ice? A lot. So we've got to make sure that Carter's Country Club includes an ice arena. And as I have shared before, in 2016, I made the right choice after many years of wrong choices. I've shared this slide before. I chose to take Carter out climbing when he was 6 months old, and he was a big dude. So, not 6 months. Oh my goodness, that's wrong. 6 weeks. I mess up his age and lots of things. But he's 6 weeks old there, right? So I made the right choice to have him, and I that's what I am here to create with Carter's Country Club, is to teach right from wrong. And I am very grateful, so grateful to Mark Passio. And I want to close out this first part with more hem, that's HEM. This is Half an Acre from Rabbit Songs. Thanks, Mark Passio. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. We need more than a half an acre, okay? We need more than a half an acre. Let's envision this. You can find the album, and I can't find it in my stepdad's big terabyte hard drive. But there's an album with him and Autumn Defense, I believe, and they do a version of this song with, like, I'm going to say timpani. I'm not a percussionist, but it sounds like timpani. It's so beautiful. As I've shared, I'm going to take Mark Passio's seminar on shadow work in November. I invite you to do it too. Do you carry every sadness with you? That's what was just said. So let's do the work. Let's do the work to start with us, so that we can take the action that these children need, deserve, and is their natural law right. You can listen to the whole album. Again, it's Hem Rabbit Songs. and I believe it was written as a lullaby for her child. I could be wrong. I'll see you in part two. Thanks for listening.